Hello and welcome to the Point to Rise show. This is your host, Suzanne Prochelle, former international ballerina that found her passion in mindset, business, and technology, and is today the founder of Rise Media. It is my purpose to use all the experiences of my past to create a better, financially sustainable future for the performing arts industry. And that starts with every single one of us. I believe that being you is your superpower. And I am here to guide you, empower you, inspire you, and give you all the resources you need to rise above what you think you're capable of. Every week, I'll bring you free shows featuring guests, collaboration, and mini episodes to ensure that you have the support in your journey as a performer. I want you to know that you are not alone. Stop chasing and start creating. Your success starts now, here with you. So let's go. Welcome back to the show. Thank you for being here, everybody. Caitlin Sloan in the house, the Brainy Ballerina. I am so stoked to have this conversation with you. Welcome, my love.
Thank you so much.
And you all head over to YouTube because you want to see her in, oh my gosh, you're just glowing. I love it. She's so gorgeous. All right. So how I usually start conversations is, hey, give us a little bit of a background on why are you doing what you're doing today? Like what is actually getting you out of bed? I see so many times that we put so much emphasis on title and, paychecks and all the achievement. And I want to focus on our why, like what's the passion and how does that really have a thread through your entire life?
Okay. Yeah. So my company that I started is called the Brainy Ballerina. And it was really actually initially born out of, I was really kind of lost. I had retired from dancing and I was in a transition period where I had left my previous company. I'd moved. And so I had gone from being the school director and really feeling like I had a lot of leadership, a lot of autonomy, a lot of ability to share what I really wanted to share with my dancers. And I went into a new environment where I was teaching and I loved the environment, but I was really just missing that ability to focus on what I'm passionate about, which is really this concept of building smart dancers and preparing dancers for career longevity, beyond technique, beyond all of that, into business skills, into just what it means to be a smart dancer, how to watch out for your mental health, how to, be self-aware, be aware of people around you, like be curious, be creative, all of these things that we need as artists that can get kind of stifled in the dance room sometimes by this traditional method of teaching that we kind of have been trained in and that a lot of us are passing down. And I feel like as a teacher, when I first started teaching, I was really following that model that I knew. And because I loved my training. I had nothing bad to say about my training. Like I thought it was really wonderful, but I think as we are also moving along through the world, we're learning new ways to do things. And so I think I started to say, okay, some of these things are resonating with me, some of them are not. How can I start to really dive into what I think is important, feel authentic to me when I'm teaching my students based on my professional career, what I saw was important. And so all that to say that really my why is just training dancers to be able to be successful in whatever career they want to have, to validate what they want to do, to tell them that that's possible and we can do that. And, to just figure out the tools they need to get there.
Oh my gosh. So there's so much goodness in there because I strongly believe, and I have been brought up the same way, like a dancer's training or teaching for 8 years was solely focused on the body and you don't need to know anything else, right? Mm-hmm. And I think 2020 has really brought down the curtain with force that it's no longer about that. That may just be 50% of your capability as a dancer, as an artist. There is so much more out there that is part of being a a well-rounded artist that we need to take into consideration. And I truly believe that these teachings, like all of the thought leaders, all the mindset, the business, the everything that makes us as human beings, is not teaching us it will actually hold us back from becoming who we are really truly meant to be. So when you said, and I found it so interesting, you found yourself lost, and so you started asking questions. And now the quality of your question determined the quality of your life, something that I love so much hearing and living by, and always afraid of, because are my questions just good enough, right? Like the old mentality comes back in. However, do you think that we're hesitant in asking questions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think in general, we're, like you said, we're a little bit maybe scared too, because we don't always want to know the answers. I know, like on a very, personal level, sometimes I know that if I start to really dig in deep and ask myself those tough questions, that I might uncover something that I have to then deal with. And I don't always want to do that. So it's easier not to, right? It's easier just to kind of continue going on and doing the same thing every day, and kind of almost feeling in that like numb place where you're very comfortable, but you have to. And then even when it comes to just the classroom, I think asking questions is how you learn better than anything else. And I feel like a lot of times the ballet education like model is set up just to be really one-sided, really teacher focused, and you're just sharing your wisdom. And there's not always room for a lot of questions. And so I just feel like if I can give my students the ability, like you said, to learn how to ask good questions and to learn how to think in that way, it is just going to change the way they approach their dancing and their career if they can start having that mindset shift from, even a young age.
Oh, honey, that is so good. I love that. So let's stay there for a little bit. I have many times heard over the past year that the change needs to start in the leadership. Okay. The change that we want to see in the industry has to start with the leadership. They have to figure out a way to make it better for us. And I disagree. Because if the people in the industry are not changing in terms of asking questions, having more self-confidence, stop following the old model, understanding their worth and their capability, nothing will change. Because right now it's working. I have heard that too. Well, it's working. Why do we need to change it? The model is working. Like everybody's still here. People are coming, yada, yada, yada. And we're not thinking of, what's down the road 5 years from today, right? And I think that that kind of thinking is so strongly perpetuated in the arts altogether, because we don't want to touch it. We don't see its value yet, because the people in it don't see their own value. So we are having these conversations. You are implementing all of these beautiful things in your company, into the studio, because it is important to talk about it. The change is not going to come from above. The change is going to start from within, which means every single person is called to and encouraged to open up and learn more about themselves. How you feel?
And I think that we're all leaders of something. Like, I think that, yes, you have the people who are in charge of all of it, right? And culture does start to trickle down from the top, but we're all leaders of our household. If I'm teaching a class, I'm the leader in that classroom. Whatever it is we do, we're leader of our life. And so if you can start thinking of yourself as a leader, and that's the person who can make a change, if that's what you think, like a leader makes a change, well, you are a leader. So you can do that as well. And I think that having that shift will help people a lot. And I agree that we all have a responsibility to start to do things. And I feel like a lot of the time we want the dancers to stay small. The industry wants the dancers to be able to just like shut up and put up, because if they start to ask questions, if they start to really think about how they're being treated, what's happening, then they might not want to do it anymore, or they won't do it for the pay or for the hours or for whatever it is. And so it's really like a mechanism designed to make this industry stay small. And if we want to grow to the size of other businesses, other industries, and make that kind of impact, we have to allow for room for the dancers to be leaders, for them to start asking questions, and to have the input available to make it better. Like, we need to start valuing their input and hearing what they're saying and putting that into practice.
So good. So why do you think, first of all, why do you think we are, as the industry, really encouraging that staying small and quiet kind of mindset? And before we go into the answer, if you don't mind, I think it is a perception of everybody from within and perhaps from with outside as well. The performing arts industry is not a small industry. It had a huge impact in 2020 alone. That industry lost 750, not million, $1 billion in revenue. That is the GDP, the general consumption, or the general gross product of some small countries like Poland or the Czech Republic. Okay, the entire performing arts industry is to be seen to reach $400 billion in capacity, or at reach, in 2025. And that's just the performing arts industry. That's not including the creator industry, which is seen as separate right now. And we're talking about, in just 1 year, at its infant stage, at like $130 billion. So just imagine, and I did the math, like if the performing arts industry would actually move into more technology and more broader reach, they could add in just 1 year, $1 billion to the entire industry. And that's very moderate, like just very moderate calculated. So numbers don't lie, even though I do not like that saying, but it is the truth. Numbers don't lie. So when we're looking at numbers in any kind of business setting, a $1 billion industry is seen as a unicorn, meaning it is seen as very lucrative and investment worthy. So I don't understand why we as a performing arts still think that we don't have an impact, because if you take it away, we're losing 4% of the general gross income stream of the entire world. And that's a lot of money. So there is a lot of power there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we believe in it. So why are we teaching our artists, our dancers, to stay quiet and just to shut up and dance? Isn't that the saying? Isn't that really the saying that we have created? So why do you think that is?
I think, and this is just like off the top of my head, there's probably so many more things that I'll think of later today that I'm like, oh, I wish that I would have thought of that. But right now, I just think that we're obsessed with tradition. I think that we're so obsessed with this idea that things need to stay a certain way, or we're going to lose the beauty and the magic of ballet. You know, I feel like I've seen a lot of people frustrated that companies have started to show like behind the scenes footage, or kind of breaking down this barrier to the fourth wall almost, and feeling like that's going to take away from the magic. And I'm just talking ballet because that's really my general area. I mean, the performing arts industry as a whole is so much more. And I think other areas of that industry are more open to this. But I feel like the ballet world in general, you don't think?
No, they're not.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
and I really need to do more research, I think, you know, in other areas beyond the ballet world, but just in my experience, so yeah, we just want things to stay the same. We think that we're going to lose the beauty and the majesty of ballet if we, you know, innovate. But I think we're going to lose all of it if we don't innovate.
I think we're going to lose everything if we don't. I agree, 1000%. So let's dig a little deeper into. We have the fear of change comes with a lack of creativity. The fear of change comes with not knowing what's on around the next corner. Or I also believe a fear of change comes with because it's comfortable right now. And we're not applying any kind of outside thinking, sources, ideologies, mindset for that matter, to apply into the arts. Like, if we're really honest, we're looking at performing arts as this separate elite baby that needs consistent swaddling and cuddling and feeding without letting and taking off the blanket and letting it grow up. Like, we're keeping it in an infancy state versus taking off the blanket, giving it a key in the hand and saying, here, go walk. I know you can. You do. And I'm helping you how to. And I think that's such a core fear. I understand it, but I'm not supporting it. And I think this is why you and I are talking so much about it, to give everybody out there the courage that it is possible. Like, we are doing the research, we are implementing things that will help you to rise above your current beliefs, right? Let's talk about business. Why do you think, and we had this conversation when we first met, why do you think it is so important for artists altogether, because they're all in the same boat, to know about business?
You have to understand how the businesses operate to understand how you fit into this model and how you can elevate it. So if you don't really understand like the structure of a company, how it's run, where funding is coming from, where it's going to, what value you bring, you know, you're not going to be able to, again, ask the questions you need to ask. You're not going to be able to clearly express the value that you bring to an organization in order to be able to advocate for yourself, for your pay, for your benefits, for your time, for all of it. So I think having an understanding of how this all works is going to be able to change the way you approach finding a job, auditioning, all of that.
So taking a more of a leadership role in your life, more of an active role. So here's what I heard when I was growing up in that field, that arts has nothing to do with business. How does that make you feel when you hear that now?
So frustrated. I mean, it's just like, it's just so backwards. And this is what we talked about before, right? Is that most companies, ballet companies, or modern companies, are nonprofits. And so we operate from this model of, we are a nonprofit, so we don't have any money. And we're constantly telling our dancers, ourselves, even our donors, we don't have any money. And then we try to run a business based on this mindset, and we can't. And when I was in grad school for nonprofit management, the very first thing we learned was a nonprofit is a business. You have to operate as a business. You have to make money. The only difference is, instead of, you know, giving your money back to your shareholders like you would in an S Corp or something, you're putting it back into your mission. The more money you make, the more mission you can achieve. So there's nothing wrong with making money as a nonprofit. You have to make money. If you want to grow, if you want to achieve your mission, you have to bring in money. And to have this constant thread running through our industry that we don't have any money, we can't afford to do that. Oh, I wish we could pay our dancers more, but we just can't afford that. I wish we could get them health care. We just can't afford that. It's like, we're never going to be seen as the relevant industry like we are. As you said, how many billions of dollars does this industry bring in? And it's still seen as not essential by a lot of people. So if we want to be able to be seen in the world in that way, we have to start treating ourselves that way.
I'm dropping the mic on this one. Oh, that was so good. Okay, I'm just now checking for understanding. So a nonprofit organization is not about not making money. It's about putting your profits not to your shareholders, but back into the business. And we're not talking about the typical 20-25% back into your business. We're talking about everything back into your business. So theoretically, if we would be applying that principle, wow, organizations could actually be looked after, meaning in their growth, their product, their dancers, their artists could be looked after in many more creative ways versus asking for donations. You could actually pay for a service that then would create more money on the outside. So we have it all wrong then, don't we? Like, who are these people that could totally and entirely perpetuate their thinking? Because it's, from what I've heard, arts are not supposed to make a profit. That is not their status in society. Well, why not? Like, why can't it? And you know, the more and more I listen, it's like we have these beliefs in place, or these boundaries or benchmarks, and nobody ever questions them. They're just there. And is it on us, on this generation that's just stepped out and has the courage to say, hey, like, I learned different, and I have enough passion and love for this industry that I am no longer willing to sit on the sidelines and watch what's going on and hear about all the trauma that is being perpetually put out there and not do anything.
I mean, and I think a lot of that is social media. You know, it's hard. I think social media can be really triggering, and there can be some negative things about it. Absolutely. One of the things that has come out of it, though, that's so beautiful, is that we're sharing our stories on a very public front, and people are saying what's going on, and this can spread quickly, much more quickly than it could, you know, in the past. So it's almost like now dancers are talking to each other and saying, oh, you experienced that? I thought that was just me. And you're starting to realize that, oh, it's not just me. And I'm not, kind of like, you feel a little crazy sometimes, you know, like you start to feel a little bit gaslit and just like, oh, I must be overreacting. I must be whatever. And so I think that we're talking to each other. We're saying, oh, this is actually a problem for all of us. And just realizing that, you know, like, money's not a dirty word. You don't have to, you can get paid for doing something you love. You can get paid for creating something beautiful. We just have this idea that if we're doing something like art, where it's for our enjoyment and for our happiness and to really feed our soul, that should be enough, that we shouldn't expect to be paid for it, which is just ridiculous.
You know where that came from? All the way back from Shakespearean time, like, and further back.
Okay, tell me more.
That belief that you live out your passion, that artists are these starving people that never have any money. They live on the street and they suffer for the sake of creation, is a long kept alive story that in 2022 has no stand anymore. However, we're still leaning into it. We're still holding it up by running organizations after that principle. I mean, if we're taking apart an organization and look at the payments, so as a nonprofit organizations, their tax return has to be, like, you can look it up. You can look up any tax return of any arts organization out there. Now, first of all, they're most of the time a year to 2 years behind in their filings. So the latest I can find is 2019 right now, sometimes 2020. And it showcases me that the administrative staff gets, in bigger companies, mid to high six-figure compensation on a 52-week contract. Not even a question. And then we're looking at the people that are actually producing the product, that have invested a lot of time and resources and energy into becoming the dancer, the artist, that are paid sometimes below minimum wage because that's all that's left.
Mhm.
Now, I understand that these two lines are the heaviest in a budget, and that's the heaviest overhead any kind of company is carrying is their labor line. Well, find ways on how to offset it with creating multiple streams of income, not by cutting weeks or their salary. I mean, let's take the Met. They all agreed to take a pay cut and work less weeks out of the year so they can make up for the $47 million they're in the hole right now. And it's the thinking of, oh, let's cut right away, let's take away and get back further and deeper into the lack mentality versus thinking of, hey, how can we create? Like, how can we bring our product to more people out there? Like when you talked about social media is such a beautiful platform right now where we can share our stories and basically build community. The thing is, though, that so many people are so afraid of other people because they don't trust themselves. So therefore, they're not trusting other people.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's not about building community or impacting a community right now, where it should be. That's how you create income, sustainability. This is how you create your future. And I just don't understand. And what I find saddening is that it trickles down all the way to everybody involved and thinking that this is the way I have to do it versus finding the courage to say, hey, I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't have to be that artist, yet I don't feel worthy of investing in myself and hiring a coach.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's a really tricky spot for a lot of dancers. I think that the idea of hiring a coach is kind of foreign to dancers, which is so interesting because we're coached our whole lives. We're not strangers to the idea of being coached. That's our daily life. We're in the studio. We have somebody telling us how to improve, how to get better. But again, it goes back to our, obsession with our body. So we're just focusing a lot of times on that. We just want to have higher extension. We just want to do more turns. We just want to have better turnout, whatever it is. We're not thinking about how working with a coach or a mentor on the other areas of our life would trickle down and impact our dancing in such a powerful way by working on our business skills, our mindset, our whatever we need to work on. It's different for every person. So yeah, having like a business coach or a career mentor or something like that, it almost seems too like you're admitting like, I don't know what I'm doing. And as dancers, we want to be like, I got this. I understand the industry. That's what I was as a young dancer. Like, I was like, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to go to auditions. I've got this. I think I would have been embarrassed to say, hey, I need to work with someone, because it would have taken off that, mask that I had it all together. And we're perfectionists and we want to always look put together, to look perfect. And working with somebody in that capacity is admitting that maybe you don't have it all together, or there's some things that you don't know and that you want to get better. And so I would really encourage dancers. I wish I could go back in time and find someone in this area. And I have so many amazing coaches and mentors I worked with who taught me these skills kind of randomly. It wasn't like we were ever sitting down in a session and they were saying, here's what we need to work on in this area of your life. They just fed it to me, randomly in the studio as I needed it, which is so powerful and so meaningful. And I can also imagine how meaningful it would have been to have somebody whose sole focus was to help me with my career.
Yes, 1000%. Absolutely. I posted a Brené Brown story today, or just quote, you either walk inside your story and own it, or your story and stand, oh, wait, here, sorry, one more time. We can't cut this out, Gigi. You either walk inside your story and own it, or you stand outside your story and hustle for your worthiness. And I cannot tell you, well, I'm telling you, every single day in the studio was hustling for my worthiness, because I didn't even know owning who I was. Oh, let's go back even further. I didn't even know who I was. I was just trying to fit in all the time. And I think the industry has beautifully created this kind of belief, right? That we have to fit in and to be just model whatever is in front of us, without asking actually people that maybe have gone through some change, or had the courage to find somebody that could become a mentor. Let's just unpack quickly the difference between a teacher and a mentor and a coach. And I'm bringing this up because I hear so many people, so many dancers refer to, oh, they're my coach in a studio. And I'm like, I don't know if it's actually a coach or if it's a person that tells you perpetually what to do and who you have to be. What's your definition of a great coach?
I think that a great coach is somebody, like you said, who oftentimes has been through this and is able to take their own experiences and then look at the dancer in front of them and really discern what this person needs right now, specifically for their growth. It might be technique, it might be mindset, it could be a rest, it could be it could be a million different things. And I think, you know, a great coach is able to say when you need what you need and know how to deliver it to you in a way that is impactful for that particular person. So they are able to say, this person learns best this way. They need me to show this visually. They need me to write this down in a letter. Whatever they need. And they are able to look at the dancers as individual human beings, as opposed to standing, I think a great teacher can stand in front of the room and give a great class to a lot of people. But when it comes to coaching, I feel like it's more individualized, it's more one-on-one, and it really gets to the roots of what that individual really needs.
Beautiful. And for me personally, a great coach is not somebody that tells you what to do, but it is somebody that asks a lot of questions and guides you towards where they believe that you could actually go to. So I was listening, and it's so interesting. I didn't know that about opera singers. Okay, so here's what you said. By the way, TikTok is such a great resource when it comes to that. I'm learning all the things that opera singers actually do not get paid on contracts. They get paid for performances. And even though they get, paid nicely for performances, it doesn't account for all the lessons that they need to take and the coaches that they are choosing to hire to get to the shows. I'm like, oh, interesting. I had no idea. And the more and more I look into like professional companies, and when we're talking about dancers, the more I see particularly soloists rehearsing by themselves. And I'm like, or hiring other coaches to work with them and not in the company. Now that to me is like, what? And I don't know enough about to like, let's make a statement or assume something. But what it looks to me like right now is that you're also spending money on somebody else helping you to get to the show or to perhaps keep your title in a company. So I'm sorry, what is that company actually doing for you? Giving you the stage? You can build your own stage, So I don't know if I'm right. I'm taking like Catherine Morgan as an example. I'm seeing a lot of ABT dancers doing that right now. I'm like,
yeah, I honestly don't know if it's something where you can choose someone you want to work with and the company will pay for you to work with that person, or if they are paying out of pocket. And I'm sure it's different in different situations, but I agree. It is a hard practice as a dancer to look at your salary and say, I have to put this money that I really need for my rent and for food and for other basic needs toward paying someone to coach me in this role that I should be receiving coaching for because I have been cast to perform it. That should already be worked into your job. So I don't know. I agree. I don't know the logistics, but I do think that it is, as a dancer, I know like it's really hard to imagine putting that money into something like that because you don't have a lot of it to begin with a lot of times.
Which is like, can we, let's just, before we wrap up, talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because dancers are truly, out of all the performing arts, the ones that are the least paid. They have the shortest lifespan, and they have the I would say the hardest time to actually perform their arts because it takes so many outside sources or circumstances to make it happen. You know, a musician can just pick up their instrument and arrive in a restaurant and earn, where dancers, they need to warm up and they keep their body up, and they need to, you know, if point shoes and costumes and. So it's not that easy, but yet we're in it, and it is one of the, it takes the most money to learn the art itself and time. What else? Help me out. Oh, and you also said, hey, you're not helping, Caitlin.
I'm waiting to see where.
Oh, thank you. No. I not very often ask for help. So it's like,
I mean, I guess it's the question, like, why aren't we getting paid?
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. I think this is standard, right? There's enough people who want to be dancers that the industry can get away with it. You know, because you're always told from the time you're young and start auditioning that, well, if you don't want to take this unpaid traineeship, somebody else will. And somebody else will. And that's the reality. They will find people to fill the Swan Lake core who are willing to do it and who have the means to do it. You know, not everyone has the luxury of being able to do that. Not everyone has the finances, not everyone has the family support that are able to say, sure, I'll take 2 years and I'll do an unpaid job and I will, you know, be a willy. So I think that's kind of like we were saying at the beginning, in order for it to change, we all have to collectively decide from the ground up that we're not doing that anymore. And we have to kind of all be in on it. Otherwise, like I said, like, it's true, there'll be somebody else who's willing to do it. And it's hard when I work with dancers, you know, I want to say to them, wait for a paid job, but I also want to say to them, the reality, right, is that I want you to get in the industry, and this is really the pathway, is going through that second company traineeship path. And so it's really hard because I even feel like as a mentor, I struggle with that, trying to find the line of wanting them to achieve in this industry and also wanting them to want better for themselves. And where do we find that middle ground, or in how do we as dancers start to ask for more and value ourselves, and also decide at what point in our career, what are we gaining? And I think the biggest thing to remember, what I really tell young dancers, is that it's always an exchange of something. It might not be an exchange of money. You know, you may be getting more opportunities. You may be working with somebody you've always wanted to work with as a choreographer. You may be getting more training. You know, it's looking at what you actually need as a dancer and deciding if what the pay is, whether it's money or opportunity or exposure, is worth it to you, is what you need. And then going from there, if it's not what you need and it's not worth it to you, don't let somebody else tell you it's a great opportunity or it's great exposure. You can decide for yourself if it is. And then if that's the case, then yes, it's perfectly possible to have an exchange of energy and time and other things that aren't money. So deciding where you're at in your career, and then at some stage, maybe that's not important to you anymore. And then you can start looking at other things. So it's really individualized. And I hope that dancers can look at each scenario and say, is this going to benefit me, not just career-wise, but as a human being? What am I going to gain from this? And if they're not going to gain anything from it, have the courage to say no, or have the courage to say yes if it's something that they really want to do, even if the pay is not there, but they're gaining something else that's going to better their life, better their career, better everything. So that's such a roundabout, not straightforward answer, I know, but it's tricky and it's individualized, and it's something I think we're going to be, like, you and I and all these other dancers and ex-dancers out there are going to keep working on.
I think it's intriguing to see that we're part of the problem, but we're also the solution. And understanding that, I feel a little bit like we're treating this as a hobby, like all together, because let's look at, okay, board members giving their money to organizations that employ people and not being paid, and putting them on stage and still not paying for it, and expecting like there's a lot of expectation in the entire industry that, oh, they're just gonna come, like, I'm not gonna run any ads, like, we don't need this, we're the arts, people are gonna come see us. But we're not there anymore. That has worked maybe in the 80s and 90s perhaps, but now it's full out there. There's so many other possibilities. Like, you gotta think differently, and it starts with how you treat your people. And even, yes, perhaps there are still many people out there that want to work for free, or they don't think that there is another opportunity. But what if companies would actually have the ability to not have like 40 dancers, but 80 or 120 on staff, and create more opportunities for performances and more opportunities to be seen, maybe also outside of the theater? Then your overhead, would, be higher, but your income would be much greater. And I think that's what we're really talking about, your return of investment, your ROI, which is a very simple business model. What you're putting in, you want to see what you're gonna get out of it. Is it worth your input? Is it bringing you a good return of your time, money, value that you're investing into a project, into a company? Is it giving it back to you? Success should not feel hard. Like, this belief of you can't make money with doing what you love to do, it doesn't exist anymore. And it's time for all of us to understand and to put it on your fridge and read it every single day. You do not have to suffer in order to be worthy, or to deserve, or to be seen or loved. It's done. We're done with this, So Caitlin, tell us, how can people work with you? Where can we find you? What are you offering right now? All the good stuff.
Sure. So you can follow me. My main social media channel is Instagram, and my handle's at the Brainy Ballerina. You can visit my website, thebrainyballerina.com, and I offer a variety of services for, just younger dancers who are just learning ballet and they want to learn more about just terminology or classical ballets, or, these kind of like history, that kind of thing. I have a lot of printable resources on my website you can use. And then for the dancers who are getting ready for a career, who are looking more toward that level, I offer career mentoring, and we work through all these things that we've talked about, and just figure out what it is you want out of your job, and then what do you need to do to get it? How are we going to get you there? I also offer workshops for schools if you want to have somebody come in, a lot of times it's part of a summer intensive, and just talk about a variety of topics. I could speak about so many different areas of the ballet world, but again, my passion is just building smart dancers who they're capable, they're confident, they're prepared, they are ready to go out into the world, and they're ready to make an impact. So if that sounds like something you want to work on for yourself or for your dancers, reach out to me and let's chat.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, last question.
Okay.
Most of the time, not the last question, but if with what you know today, you would be able to go back to your 16-year-old self and she would listen to you for just a moment or two, what would you tell her?
I think I would just tell her that you're doing a good job. Like, you're doing great. And I feel like when I was 16, I had so many insecurities, so much perfectionism. So I was just so stalled because I was so scared of, like I said before, anyone knowing that I didn't know what I was doing or that I wasn't perfect. I didn't want to ever let anyone know that about me. I always want, and to this day, I want that. And it's something that I'm constantly working on, as it's a lifelong journey, right? Of just being able to show up and take messy action and just try something and be okay with failing. And I was really not okay with failing at that age. And so, yeah, I would just tell myself, like, you're doing great. Just, if you mess up, that's okay. You have to mess up. Actually, I would tell her, you have to mess up if you want to, you have to fail. You have to go through all of that to succeed, or you're just going to stay at the same place. So, yeah.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing, my love. I really appreciate that. I think that it's such an important message, because the thriving or striving for perfectionism in the studios during the teaching, and when we're getting into companies on a stage, really takes away it completely takes away our ability to learn. Meaning, and with that, the confidence to actually be okay with not being perfect. And reality is that we all are not perfect. We're not meant to be. Life is not meant to be perfect. We cannot appreciate the ups if we don't know what the downs are feeling. And when we're striving and expecting everybody else to just be one thing all the time, it's neither authentic, neither is it the truth, nor is it something that can be upheld for a very long time. So encouraging everybody that life is a journey and that we're consistently learning was one of the most impactful discoveries that I really truly had after I started self-development. It's okay to learn. You do not, and never ever will you, know everything. Nobody expects you to know everything. I don't know if you can relate, Caitlin, but I couldn't even ask questions. Like, I was so afraid of asking questions. Now try to build a business when you're afraid to ask questions, right? Or when you're afraid to, fail, like nobody buys your program. Well, okay, pivot. Look at your messaging. Look what you've done. Is it like, have you really shown up the way you should be? Is it the right thing they need? But I never was able to, it was just like devastating. It's like, I am not worth it. And it's not the truth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it holds so many of us back, just the idea that we have to be perfect, and it's exhausting. It's so tiring. If I had one word to describe myself as a teenager, it was tired, because I was not only overscheduled and trying to do everything, but I was trying to do everything absolutely perfect and never gave myself permission to let any balls drop. And I saw this analogy that I really loved maybe a couple of years ago, where it was talking about how you're, always juggling all these balls in the air. And it was like, some of these balls are plastic and they can drop, and that's okay. And some of them are glass and you can't drop those. And those are the things that really matter. That's your family, your relationships, those things that are so important to you. Those are the things that you need to make sure you're giving your full authentic self to. And you can only do this if you're willing to be vulnerable and be imperfect and show up to those people and just say, I made a mistake, or I did something wrong, or just being open. And I think that is a lifelong and a daily practice of, just like you said, self-discovery, just talking to yourself and saying, why am I feeling this? What's going on today? What do I need to learn from this experience? And realizing that we're all human beings and some days are better than others, but we just keep going.
I think that was a very nice way of rounding today up. Thank you everyone for listening. I would encourage you to go to her Instagram. That's where all her content is, under the Brainy Ballerina. Have a look, see, share. We would love it if whatever stood out from this episode, you could actually share on Instagram, TikTok, whatever your platform of choice is. And yeah, let us know what your biggest takeaway is. And also encourage you, let us know what you don't agree with what we said today, because that truly is on my heart in this show, is to provoke a little bit of action from you, to see you engaged and see you that even though you don't agree, nothing is going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. I actually will, shout you out and say, hey, I really, really appreciate you, because we don't always have to agree, So go share, go listen, go inward. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening. If this message resonates with you, please pass it on to someone who needs to hear this right now. And if you like what you've heard, your feedback will go a very long way. If you just take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star review, that would mean the world to me. Till next time, point at yourself to rise to all that you are capable of.